Hello, c'est moi, George Lees, but I've taken on, just to explain things to you, the role of one of the gods, which is what the Roman emperors used to do beyond Julius Caesar. And Emperor Constantine sees the launch of false Christianity. So this is Thor's hammer. He's a Norse god, and I'm now pretending that I'm dressed as one of the Roman gods, and everything that is a god in the male gender has its genitals cut off and dropped in the ocean, because all of the people that are the gods beyond the transition through the Piso families murdering and shagging the Roman emperors, the whole of the story is taken over by the Piso pen, and all of the gods are planted as false myths, just to take the piss out of them. And last night the wind was absolutely howling through town, and it made me look into the mythology behind the gods. You should see what the sickle is. It's the instrument that they use to cut off the genitals and they drop them in the ocean, and that is in Britney's songs. Oops, I did it again, I played with your heart right up to the end. I made you believe we're more than just friends. Everything about the people that created our universe is a piss take. And it's me in the Roman gear, in the woman's jacket, because I am a man. Like Thor, who was obligated to pretend that he was his sister, so that he could get his hammer back and recreate the lightning storms. I'll show you the statistics on seismology and volcanic activity in Italy. 2 of the mountains have been erupting eternally since Christianity was launched. One of them is in the Pinocchio film. That's Stromboli. The other is Mount Etna. Vesuvius is due to erupt, and now 3 million people live around its base. Right, so I'm going to take on my normal mortal pose, and tell you the horrible truth about all of this story. And this is the headline. Oh no, it's the Britney lyrics. I dare not play the Britney lyrics. So the bit about them dropping it into the ocean is when man goes to the moon in the joke, and when the spaceman talks to Britney down on Earth, he says, have you found the jewels that they dropped into the ocean? The jewels are the genitals of one of the Roman gods. I believe it's Poseidon, and his family tree is there. Let me show you it now. Poseidon. Sorry, it's not Poseidon. So do you see that the piss take is that the word Piso is in Poseidon already? And Dion is the rest of it. That's the gods, and there is Uranus, who's the father of this family tree, with Poseidon being his great-grandson with the word Piso in it. Uranus is one of the portals that Ali G has instructed us is important in all of the public school boys' activities, and the activities of the little poofy guy that is Michael Gove, and that is the Gove the god by Jove. That's Jehovah. It is the Roman god Jove, and all of the Roman gods are picked out of the Greek gods that were actually named Zeus and Hera, and their names are changed, and they pretend that that is a different generation of gods, as Julius Caesar declares himself to be the god on this earth, like the Queen is God's representative in the Church of England. And they're all in the same fucking bloodlines. Do you get it? Uranus's genitals. Let's follow them down the page. It's quite. This is the launch of the joke about the choir boys, and guess who emerges from that? It's Kylie's. Kylie's joke, the Aphrodite album that she released when she had her tits removed. Yeah, and yeah, they think they're really clever in making neuters of the gods. Yeah, and there is the family tree with Apollo in it, Hermes, Dionysius, Semele, Dion, yeah, and all of the songs that Selene sings with the bee gods, that's the Bee Gees, about immortality. And she's had several deaths in her family just this year. That is her brother and her husband. Yeah. And Selene, where else can we go from that? Yeah. So you've got Hades in the brother, yeah, of Poseidon, and these are the Poseidons that are pictured even in the films of I've got someone coming to my door, I'm not going to go there. So these are the people that are depicted in Jason and the Argonauts movies, yeah, and the people that are capable of taking the fluids, which are the oil, yeah, and the oil wealth for the world, from the core of the earth, and the Argonauts, if you're brave enough, yeah, and up to take on the gods and their might and their capacity to release eruptions and volcanic explosions, then you can milk that oil, and that is what Royal Dutch Shell and all of the massive companies that we've told you about in the Little Sis website, owned by Donald Trump and his colleagues, yeah, all of it is the same fucking joke, yeah. And so you have to go back to really ancient history to see how the gods were worshipped and how all of their temples have now been flattened. Okay, so there is the title that we're going to work on, The Lost Gods, the Romans. I'm going to play you all 3 episodes because in a nutshell it yeah, sorry I'm talking about nuts all of the time. Yeah, it is. That's the coconuts for the Roman icon, yeah, and Jesus is icon, and the Piso's icon, that is the hippo, which was explained in the last couple of videos, and all of the jokes about the horse being the icon for the Pisos because of that hippo Greek translation. Yeah, that is the stories about the horses, the cavalry, the Calvary Hill, and all of the namings. So the lost gods for the Romans, there are 3 very brief episodes. I'm going to show you them all, and intermittently I will interrupt it and explain you every time that one of the Piso pens has written in that person into the lineage. Yeah, do you get Poseidon with the word Piso in it? At least that one does not have polis in it. Right then, so that's the London Metropolitan Polis. Okay, so the lost gods, the Romans, 1 of 3. And you should see the seismic and volcanic history of Italy. It's quite horrendous.
This is one of the best known symbols of Rome. Romulus, founder of the city, and Remus, his brother, being suckled by a she-wolf. But the she-wolf is Etruscan, from about 500 BC. The twins were added 200 years later. The story of Rome and its gods begins elsewhere.
So, this could well be, as you can see, the Hobbiton jokes, with the Pi PI Paisley pipes, and the little dwarfs, and the hobbits, yeah, and all of the jokes about living in the Underhill region, all of the jokes about all of that, yeah, and the burial places, yeah, which are the hobbit homes, are the same joke as the Bronze Age mounds, which I have in my Pinnacle Pi PI Pinnacle Hill Park estate, which was home to the Babin houses and the Rothschilds and Missy Elliott, the linkage with FDR and the Pilgrim Fathers that launched World War II for America. Massive genocide. Lived on the estate that I live on, and after the war they had to blow up that mansion for reputational reasons, because it's run by the Babin houses and all of those massive Rothschild's presences, out of the Fitzlar place near Frankfurt, where they killed all of the pagans. That's the Bronze Age people that had their kings and queens, and every one of those pagan goddesses and satyrs and every one of their spokespersons that are the oracles, has been crushed and laughed at ever since. All of these stories were the way that Rome treated its gods, and you'll see that everywhere they conquer, they learn the mythology so they can keep the locals in place, and in fear of their lives and their souls. This is the biggest empire that ever existed before HRH took it over. You recognise Jesus' tomb and the rolling stone.
The Romans adopted and adapted the customs and beliefs of the peoples they conquered. One of the most influential of these were the Etruscans.
The speaker with the Irish accent is called Christopher Kennel, Christopher Kennel. So he now has the god in the kennel on the end of the lead, which is the joke about my dog Tag and World War II. For all of the global Freemasons and all of their places of social activity are the temples all over the world. TAZE Russell actually lived in Pearl Harbor region, in Oyster Bay region. He actually lived in the same places that the FDRs lived, next to Oyster Bay. That is Teddy Roosevelt's residence, and his street address will be explained later on. It is actually another Christianity joke. It is absolutely relentless. That's TAZE Russell, who was buried under a Pi Pi pyramid, in the funeral ceremony, and is a massive Freemason. The Douglas family have been all over me this weekend. Not the daughter that I tried to befriend, but he was preaching at me in the town square the other day that none of this is beyond the Mason's thrall. He tells us that every word that's spoken in TAZE Russell's Jehovah's Hall comes from God. There is no representative for the God. This is their story. Ever since Julius Caesar became a dictator with the initials that Jesus Christ uses.
By 650 BC, Paisley, now Cerveteri, was one of the richest towns in Europe, trading with Egypt and Venice. Like the Greeks, the Etruscans had a group of city-states.
Christie Keannelly. For a pistake, everything is a pistake.
Afterlife that resembled this life, and housed their ancestors in the city of the dead. Thousands of tombs carved from soft volcanic rock were arranged in a city-like plan. And it is among the dead we discover how the Etruscans lived.
So do you now get the black door, in the Gladiator movie, and him drifting in there on his way to Elysium or to hell? And the man that was Maximus is actually, in the real story of Rome, the Piso assassin. And he kills several emperors, and those emperors sometimes are the sires of the Piso women's children. That's the Mariam story. Okay, It's absolutely cynical. Told from the kennel that God now lives in. That's the Hebrew word backwards, is dog.
In 1827, frescoes were discovered in the Tomba dei Rilievi, as remarkable as any found in Greece.
And they've got the Greek Olympian, yeah, they've got the Olympian circles, yeah, they've got the ports of entry and the erect penile structures, yeah, and that is also a dog or a wolverine structure, yeah. That's the role of the gods in the siring of the children of the gods that become the Roman emperors, and Romulus and Remus, and that's Uncle Remus in the black man jokes about the slaves in America. Yeah.
Painted on damp plaster, they reveal the Etruscan cult of the dead, similar to that of Egypt in the same era.
Do you see a sickle?
Vases, pottery, and art objects were part of the furnishings the dead would need.
So vase is in the Gladiator movie, and as you know, vase and flowers that go in them mean Piso. Everything is the same fucking joke. Yeah. And that's the tomb in which Jesus talked to Mary Magdalene and the people, yeah, that were the sluts in the Bible who came to visit him and see whether or not he'd risen from the dead. And the Easter egg had rolled down the hill, which brings in billions of pounds for the corporate companies. Yeah. There we go.
In the afterlife. But what of their gods? The Etruscans believed in the homely gods, the gods of the threshold and hearth. They also believed in the mighty gods, based on the Greek Zeus and Hera.
What the Etruscans took from the Greeks, the Romans took from the Etruscans. From the father god and mother goddess to the humble household gods, the Romans took it all when they defeated the Etruscans in 280 BC.
So, 300 BC, the launch of all of the jokes about Alexander the Great, who at that time had a bigger empire than the Romans were to have. Yeah? Sorry, he had a bigger empire that was replaced only by Julius Caesar and Emperor Augustine and all of the people that are Hadrian, that launched the Christianity fraud into Britain. And you'll see how they do it, and I've described it already, but these videos are much more concise. Yeah, that's the Springwood structure at the end of Springwood Estate in my town.
Was the heart of Republican Rome.
It's on the cricket pitch in my town.
Roman religion encompassed and celebrated the mighty gods of nature and the everyday gods of domestic life.
And there's TAZE Russell's eagle.
Of the Father God, bearer of thunderbolts, Vestal virgins kept the sacred flame alight, a symbol sacred to the goddess Vesta, who protected every Roman hearth and home.
So that's Swan Vestus, yeah, matches, and all of the fires that mean that all of the writings and all of the literature on the real ancient gods and goddesses has been burnt by the Piso families, who launched the false god, yeah, only one god, and his name is Jesus, with his second name Christ, yeah, like Julius Caesar's initials. And he was killed by them, do you remember?
More and more kingdoms fell to Rome. The Romans brought their booty on the Via Flaminia.
Same design as Kelso Bridge.
The Romans had mastered the arch. They would use it to span an empire and bring its riches home to Rome.
So that is a subtle one. Do you remember what the arch joke is? Yeah, it's Archie Leach in the Fish Called Wanda film. It is Archelaus Piso. Yeah, Archelaus, the need to delouse the Nazis in the prison camps before you burn them in the ovens. And the oven is explained later on in the family history for the Pisos, the world's biggest killers and the authors of the Christian Bible that says that you must always love your neighbour. Yeah, masters of psychology, they conquer the countries, they learn how the gods have their respect, and then they use that to keep them in fear of their souls and to pay their massive taxes thousands of miles from the Roman hub.
The victorious generals rose to power and competed for the ultimate prize, to rule Rome itself.
So we might have missed something there, and I'm going to show you.
The Romans brought their
That's just like Kelso Bridge where the biblical floods occur.
The Romans had mastered the arch. They would use it to span an empire and bring its riches home to Rome. The victorious generals rose to power and competed for the ultimate prize, to rule Rome itself.
The Republic was under threat. Cometh the hour, cometh the man. The man who claimed descent from the goddess Venus.
Do you get that for the Irishman? That is the words of the new national anthem. Yeah, in the places called Croke Park, where they gunned down the people that refused to fight for HRH in World War II. Yeah, and they've changed the dates of all of that story. Yeah, this is the disloyal Irishmen who take the money, yeah, and pretend that they do not understand that their name is Kennel. Yeah. And Ken is the joke about the Nesset, and that's Kendod and the Dionysius Didymain, and everything is a fucking piss take. Even my Uncle Kenneth's children have guilt on that. Thank you, Christopher. Yeah, thank you for all of that.
And from the ancient Greek hero Aeneas crossed the Rubicon and captured his own capital.
This man was Julius Caesar. He gave the city a new form, edged with monumental buildings long since gone. He took for himself the title Pontifex Maximus, the High Priest of Rome. In 44 BC, when the senators murdered Caesar, they thought they were reclaiming solid Roman Republican values. In fact, they had swapped a dictator for an emperor. The reign of Augustus was the golden age of Rome.
So, here comes Donald Trump's golf club. Yeah, that's the son of Fred Christ Trump. Yeah, it's getting quite gusty outside. Yeah, I will not show you that. Last night it was absolutely whistling, and I've had to batten my windows down again, yeah, until I get these facts on board. And it's really easy to say and to see that the whole, and this one looks just like the golfer with the big tits, yeah. Colin Montgomery, and they are now the human gods that are the Dukes of Buccleuch families and Sarah Montgomery's relatives, yeah, at the BBC. Right then.
Architecture thrived. Marble temples and monuments were raised to honour gods borrowed from the Greeks.
So do you get the Elgin marbles now and the Genitals jokes for Brittany? And that structure that is in Paris, it is in Berlin, it is in every provincial town in our world, and it has the 4 columns that need the 5th columnist, yeah, to tell the lies and to be the double agents and to be the bankers that destroy Norway that destroy Holland, and all of it is a fascist initiative. And that is why next to the cricket pitch, yeah, there is just a Freemasonic hub, like the lodges for the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Salvation Army, and all of the Rothschild controlled and owned false religions. Yeah. Yeah, that's the Salvation Army videos, and that's Hannah Rothschild #1. Yeah, keep marching on with the sound of the Piso coinage chinking in your chariot for the Salvation Army. Yeah, and TAZE Russell and all of the place names in the Garden of Eden, which is Aden. Yeah, that's TAZE, and all of the places that are Mazrib, and all of the Bible stories jokes in the Garden of Aden for the BP plan.
Zeus became Jupiter.
So none of them get to live on, yeah?
Aphrodite became Venus. Poseidon, the sea god, became Neptune. The Roman public could...
And that is their new option, because the trident option is nuclear extinction. Explicitly explained in all of the videos I've made about the Freemasons' deliberate attempts yet to get rid of the demonic icon that is the swastika for Hitler Rothschild, that has been their icon for global Freemasonry through all of world history. Yeah, it is the limbs for the circus tumblers, it is the windmill arms, and that's the Dutch fascists, and on it goes. Okay, and the emperors build vast tracts, yeah, and massive castles, yeah, and they are now the gods on this earth. Yeah, as they launch the new one, which is the biggest cause of death in world history. His name is Jesus, or E.T. in the Jewish stories.
Bathed in the heated baths of Caracalla and flock to the Colliseum for entertainment.
So can you see now why Rupert Murdoch, when he was sent for stealing bread, yeah, to Australia, why he invented the cricket game, and all of his broadcasting networks now consume entirely the hearts and minds of all of the worshippers of every sport that we have. Yeah, and they sing the anthems that you've just heard about at all of those desperately sickening, yeah, patriotic events. All of them are profiteers, and now you have to be a professional to compete in the Olympics. All of the ethos that everything we do and everything we can have for nothing has totally been stripped out since I was a boy, and I got everything for nothing. Yeah, now my children are going to be up to 70 grand in debt, yeah, for making their choices to become honours graduates in Britain's universities. It's absolutely ruthless. Did you see that the Colosseum has an umbrella shape? Yeah, that's the David Bowie songs, When You Know, yeah, the rain will rain and the storms will storm around you.
The Pantheon, the home of all the gods, became...
So, that's Woody the rugby commentator's joke. It is sadly my goddess Shania Twain's joke about the Panther kit, and all of the Kalpurnius Piso jokes. That this time today is the head of the Gorgon, which is my task now to take on, because Percy, Duke of Northumberland, will not do that. That's the one who hosts, yeah, as Perseus the poet from the Roman court, the Poison Garden and the Harry Potter movies about magic. Yeah, and they don't scare me one bit. the writer of that is the woman who has MS, and that is the Faroe Islands joke, that MS is more prevalent in the Faroe Islands because the Pharaohs are in the bloodline with HRH and the Roman emperors. Yeah, that takes you right back to King Solomon and Solomon's temple and burying the innocent people in the cornerstone. That joke is in these 3 movies.
The religious heart of Imperial Rome.
They've got one in France too.
It was the sanctuary of the Roman gods, dedicated to the Emperor Augustus, who encouraged the idea of his own divinity.
Agrippa.
The Pax Romana, the Roman peace, spread to the very edges of the empire.
So do you get it? The whole empire is at war, and the Pax region is outside its boundaries. Yeah, and they get there eventually, and that is the VITA Corleone joke. Yeah, in Cardiff Bay, where St. Baruch Obama is the patron saint. Yeah, and everywhere you go, the people that are sainted and are the frauds in Christianity get killed by the gods. That is Saint Baruch, who drowned in Cardiff Bay. Yeah, and this is where the Bristol Freemasons come from. That is right up to Liverpool, all the way down there. It's treasonous. Yeah, through Oxfordshire, through the Cambridge region is on the other side, and every one of the Roman roads is a sinister place for false Christianity. Yeah, and down here the places are legendary. I forget what they were, but I've profiled all of them, and the death camp stories, yeah, and all of the Miller stuff about the burning people in the fire pans. It's in the Christian Bible. It is really, really sick. So that's Hay on Wye and the beautiful River Wye Valley
in Wales was a wall
that gets the tidal wave from God.
75 AD and covering over 20 hectares. But the walls that kept the Welsh out kept the Romans in, and within these walls they recreated Rome. Five and a half thousand legionaries lived in 60 barracks at Caerleon. Today, only the ruins of 4 remain.
So, do you get that one? That is PISO code 60 is KP for Kalpurnius Piso. Yeah, that's Cataractia is the Catterick racecourse, where all of Tony Blair's financial crimes cover up the fact that his children went to the Catterick school. Yeah, and let's just keep going. Yeah, hope you don't get epilepsy. Yeah, with those flashing images.
The only surviving legionary barracks in Europe. The Roman legions brought their gods with them to the far-flung regions of the empire. A Roman emperor might make a sacrifice to Minerva, the goddess of wisdom, to enlighten his rule.
So, that's the Augustine NERVA movement. Yeah, that's Emperor Augustine, who gets mentioned as being one of the people that launches heaven on this earth. Yeah, and all of it is murderous, and for the taxations that they get from the federated tribes, who eventually begin to fight back against them and become Holy Roman fucking German Empire and Austro-Hungary and all of the wars, including World War III. Yeah, that's a Freemasonic message, that this is what we intend to do to the globe 3 times already, and that is the icon for Austro-Hungary that was launched by Constantine, who comes into it much later. Well, only about 400 years later.
Far from the security of Rome, the legionaries of Caerleon would beg the favour of Mars.
So do you get VITA Corleone now? Gordon Bowden, the Welsh hero.
But it wouldn't be Rome and home without an amphitheatre. Why was it built outside the walls of the fortress? Is it?
So do you get it? That's Cardiff Arms Park now, and all of my heroes who fish the junction pool, yeah, that gets swept away in the biblical floods. Just above that bridge, which is exactly like the bridge in the Roman story that you've just heard. And you should see where the quakes hit them. Let's get on with that so we can show you. Oh, we're missing a lot of the work.
That the only fighting the legionary saw was between gladiators in this 6,000-seat arena.
Corleone was replicated all along the edges of the empire.
So do you get it? That's the pious areas that are the peaceful places, yeah, inside the empire, and as the extension of that continues, every one of the pagans that they capture en route gets killed, yeah, as a sporting event for Rupert Murdoch's lineage.
Forts and towns that held to Roman gods and Roman ways and protected Rome from the barbarians. All-powerful Rome was an empire in which the border between state and religion was becoming increasingly blurred. Why would it fear foreign gods?
Oh, sorry, too late with that. Let's keep going. So Hadrian's villa, it's fucking massive. Yeah, and right next to where all the earthquakes occur. Yeah, it's massive. Lakes, the same view as you would get as you look down at the world's war graves, and every elite castle, yeah, all over Britain, including the Duke of Westminster's. But here, at this stage, there are still no Roman churches like the Duke of Westminster now has in Eccleston. Yeah, and if you believe the stories about Eccleston's people being kidnapped and held to ransom, you are a bigger mug than I take you for. So this is the Olympic circles.
Hadrian's villa in Tivoli covered an area greater than that of the imperial centre of Rome. Here, Hadrian created one of the greatest exhibitions of art and architecture, and most of it copied from the Greeks.
The Romans regarded foreign gods as having power over the people who worshipped them. By bringing them to Rome and housing them in splendor, Hadrian hoped to transfer their power and their favor to the empire. His most ambitious project was the canal.
So they cut their genitals off and chuck them in the ocean. Whoops, we did it again. We take the PISO out of everything that we have not written into the false religion story. Yeah, and this time they're living on an island with a tiny little bridge, and that is the Bronze Age model for every little village. Yeah, so you could live on that island and you could protect yourself by fighting on the bridge. And that is the stories about Hannibal. It was my favourite poem when I was a youngster because it's got fighting in it. Horatio at the bridge. Right then.
A replica of the sanctuary of the Egyptian god Serapis in Alexandria.
Okay, so that's one of the lost gods. Right then, let's get out of it and then move on one. The lost gods, the Roman...
This is Metropolis, out now on digital download.
So, that's Murdoch's Fox or Wolverine News, that is the bunny rabbit that comes into the story, and that becomes the Jupiter joke. Yeah, it's the Lupiter joke, and the French pronunciation for rabbit, the French word for rabbit comes into the naming of Jupiter, who, as you've just seen, was Poseidon. Yeah, before he loses his bullocks. Oh no, sorry, I keep getting the gods wrong. Squeaky voice. Yeah, it's absolutely sickening. And the sickle is what they cut their bullocks off with, and that's the marbles, yeah, in the museums. Really funny if you're a Freemason in the temple in New York, right next to Oyster Bay, where they killed millions and millions of their own citizens, yet using FDR from the Pilgrim Fathers and the Mayflower. Yeah, when the news gets out, John Patterson, you keep telling me that, what will the militias in this world do? All of them are in the Masons. There's no way that the world can be freed. Until the gods take a hand. They're wide awake now. I know that from last night. Yeah, and my windows are in grave risk of being perforated really soon. Right then, so.
For this he had a canal dug 119 meters long and lined with imported Egyptian statues, caryatids, similar to those on the Acropolis.
Got the word polis and Piso in it, the Acropolis. Yeah. And remember that their gods are just the Greek gods with new names and pistakes. And all of the people that write the history include Professor Higgins of Durham University. That is Higginus, yeah, and he's the one that refused me jobs as the best candidate with a professorial record all over the world, yeah, because he is part of this religious fraud, and he's part of the pharma frauds too. That's Christopher Higgins, the former Vice Chancellor, yeah, at Durham University. And the head of the theological unit is Professor Murray, and that is the Moravian joke that I told you the other day, yeah, about all of the Christian diasporas and King Tut in Egypt being in the same family blood lines as Queen Elizabeth II in Windsor.
The statues of the Greek gods in Tivoli show how far the Roman gods had evolved from vague elemental noumena to take on human features and form. The Greeks gave faces to the Roman gods.
So there's the little island, yeah, with the temple on it, and that is the basis for the Bronze Age people that live around Scotland.
Pool, surrounded by columns, the man who ruled the lives of some 15 million subjects found solitude. In a state where the borders between religion and state had become inseparable.
You see the Apollo joke.
It was a short step from emperor to god. Here in the maritime theatre, Hadrian could indulge his passions for...
And all over the world, the canalization of the waterways is a huge trick against the gods, because they can no longer punish with the biblical flood. But they find a way past all of that. Yeah, and know that they will do it again. Just a question of when.
Painting, architecture, and for his lover Antinous, who drowned in the Nile. By Hadrian's decree, he became the last Roman god.
So the missus drowned in the Nile, which also means Piso, and before everybody understood that, it was called the Pishon, yeah, which is the fuller's joke in underneath Vesuvius for those that clean the sullied uniforms with the blood all over them and the greasy stains of the semen from the orgies in the underworld. Yeah, that is the fuller's joke, and it is the utility of urine for Sally Magnuson, who presents songs of praise for 30 years as a member of the Magnus bloodline. Yeah, right up close to the Faroe Islands, where MS is more prevalent than anywhere else in the North Atlantic. Same design as Versailles.
England built a walled sanctuary for foreign gods and to house the art and architecture of conquered nations. But the threat to the Roman gods would come from the east, from a city gifted to Rome by the Greeks.
Let's take that back a bit, because it's very important for the Selkirk Freemasons that have dropped out of my... There we go. Ephesus. The thing I could not understand in the last 2 videos I made. It's in the Bible, written by the Pisos, and it's right next to Selkirk. Yeah, and the river names that run into Selkirk are biblical too. Yeah, I used to fish them. They meet with the Tweed, but I forget the names of the rivers and the tributaries. Yet they are all biblical jokes. Yet that's the Selkirk Freemasons. The only 2 of the warriors, of the 800 that were killed at Flodden, returned to the town, and they celebrate that every year, and they dance in their kilty uniforms. Yeah, and this is right across by Gallipoli, yeah, where the River Clyde ship was beached on the beach in front of the German and the Turkish armies, so that every one of those working people from Gillespie got gunned down before they could get off the beach. Yeah, and it's the same joke for Tom Hanks, Rockefeller at Normandy, and this is the biblical stories. Yet this is the launch from across here at Antioch of the Antioch hand grenade, and when it gets into volcanic Italy, everybody's really in trouble. Yeah, because the last time Vesuvius erupted was in 1944, the year before the bastards took us to war and killed another 45 million for the same cause. Get the numbers down and keep blaming it on anti-Semitic issues or anti-Christian issues, or on issues of refining the massive religions that we have launched all over the world as the Piso family, as the biggest piss take in world history. And the laundry joke. And the Olympics joke.
According to the historian Aristides, Ephesus was Asia's greatest center of trade and banking. It was an exotic city of marble.
Have you heard of banking activities by these families before? Yeah, it's the Morgans, it's the Mayflower passengers. Yeah, it is JP Morgan with the liar's nose. And the liar is one of their instruments.
Streets and magnificent temples, the envy of the ancient world. Founded in the 13th century BC by the Greek Antipas, it was bequeathed to the Romans in 133 BC. The Romans were content to allow the Ephesians pay homage to the Greek god Artemis, the Egyptian god Isis, or any of the other gods who had found followers in this.
So thank you, Peter Eyre, yeah, who's a lookalike for my neighbour who looks ever so jumpy at the moment. Yeah, and his children have MS, but they're not from the Faroe Islands, they're from Rupert Murdoch's Australia. Yeah. This is the Isis myths that launch Joseph with the coat of many colours into Egypt with the pyramids for TAZE Russell by his burial place. Yeah, and that's TAZE Russell who predicted that 1914 would be the end of the evil world and that all of the good people would be liberated. But he is in a war with his wife. He divorces his wife, and I forget what the link to her was that took me into Oyster Bay and the FDR Roosevelt crime scenes for the genocides in World War II.
long as they paid their taxes to Rome.
Canalised. Do you get it? Like the Roman baths in Bath? Festering eventually.
Ephesus was dedicated to Artemis, the man-hating goddess of the moon, the woodlands, and women in childbirth. Her temple was one of the 7 wonders of the world.
She's Sumatra, if you read it backwards, like Frank, yeah, in Monterey.
A simple column remains.
That's the cock, yeah, for the Piso Fanny. The throne, yeah, and that is where the cranes fly from, bringing the babies to all of the people as a result.
A monument to the Greek architect Theodorus.
Yeah, it's Theodolus, the yodel joke, yeah, out of Bavarian Alpine region, where all of the prophets and the bankers are.
Challenged to build on a marsh, he filled the foundations with coal, topped with leather. On this novel base, he raised the temple 115 meters long and 55 meters wide, the biggest marble temple in the world.
So that is breaking in through the Earth's crust and interfering with it. Yeah, can you guess why there's not so much left of it? Yeah, the gods are mighty powerful. Yeah, and they create the coal seams. Yeah, and they create all of the materials that they are laying under there. Yeah, to prevent all of it flooding. Yeah, and all of it in the end is knocked over, like many of the great 7 wonders of our world, by massive earthquakes and volcanoes and sea storms.
The vision of Theodorus was awe-inspiring. 127 columns supported a massive wooden roof built with cedar beams. It was the pride of Ephesus.
That's cedar from the Lebanon in the Holy Lands. Guess how they get it? Yeah, many people die in every religious gesture. Yeah, that is the cedar wood that is in the Episcopalian churches all over the world, and they're absolutely beautiful to look at. And the people inside them realise that there's a major risk now to the frauds that they have run for 2,000 years, with the letters KP embellished in those wooden rafters that they have in the church. Kalpurnius Piso, yeah, it's in the Kelso church, right next door to that bridge that you just saw, and right next door to the Colditz Hotel that is Ednam House, run by the Brookses, and that is the Innsbruck and Brooklyn jokes, and everything is lethal. And that's why they are able to own the whole world. And it's nice to look at, and all of it now is in other people's museums in the city of London that you might have heard of before.
But Ephesus holds other architectural wonders. The library of Celsus in Ephesus was built in the 2nd century AD by Achilles as a monumental tomb.
So, that is also Archelaus. That is Achilles with the weakness in the ankle, and that is the joke in the Jason and the Argonauts movie about the gods having the weakness in the ankle, and they can then mine the oil that the whole of the world should be given for free and turn it into the massive money streams that are the 4 oil giants that are Royal Dutch Shell, I forget the names of them, yeah, and all BP, Royal Dutch Shell, BP. Oh, let's get on with it, otherwise we're not going to get episode 3 finished. Yeah, and you're not going to realise how the whole world is a piss take, where the gods get their genitals cut off, and the real gods that created our universe have been totally displaced by the Muppet characters that are Gove in government today, and our Mark Carney behind the stable door. Oh, I forgot to upload that video. Look for Mark Carney and Brexit on YouTube. He makes his speech on releasing 170 billion first, and then another 200 billion. That is enough to feed the British economy for a whole year. Yeah, in all of the stories that I've told about the statistician who is the McCandless. Yeah, when I came back from New Zealand, McCandless used to release the statistics on how much our British economy was, how much money it cost us to brutalise Iraq, and then how much money it cost us to brutalise Lebanon, and then how much money it cost us to brutalise all of these countries again. Yeah, and what they're doing now is quantitative easing. When Mark Carney releases the news out of Canada as the lumberjack in the Bank of England, he does it above the lower stable door, which is closed, which is the Piso horse icon joke. And every racecourse, including Cataracticus, yeah, that's Catterick, where all of the Roman roads go, all of it is a fraud scene.
For his father, Governor Polynaeus. The architectural challenge was to squeeze it between two existing buildings.
So that is Archelaus Piso again. The Achilles myths, written by Aesop and his colleagues, and the Grimm brothers from the no-bombing zones in Europe.
By arching the steps between the middle and the edge. In the same way, the columns in the center were larger than those at the sides, making the building look loftier than it was.
So it takes on the form, like the cloud at Vesuvius, of a pyramid, or a Pi Pi non-existent Christmas tree. And all of them are knocked over by quakes from guess who. You can only guess now. None of them get the credit for what they've done to create the beautiful world.
For the craftsmanship of its facade. Two columns with Corinthian capitals support a capstone decorated with a carving of Tyche, the goddess of fortune.
Do you get that one, Hannah Rothschild? That is the plastiki joke and the con-tiki joke. Yeah? About you being able as humans and mortals to circumnavigate the globe in your elite yachts. Yeah, and you can see the spider's web is all around them. That's globalism from start to finish. All roads lead back to Rome.
Holds a relief of Medusa, one of the three gorgons of Greek mythology, who's
You see her, she's lovely. Yeah, she is the one who can turn your cock to stone. Yeah, and she's dead ringer for the Miss Manningham Buller body double in town. I don't know what what her breast measurements are, but this one's a little bit flat up there. Okay, can you see it? It's the joke about everything that is sexual. That is the Napoleon's columns and all of the Nelson columns in London are the prick, and they're the only things that survive in these stories or are rebuilt to keep the mythology going.
Appearance could turn men to stone.
Quite a good looking woman, Miss Manningham Buller.
But it is the frieze around the upper lintel of the door that illustrates vividly the Roman influence on Greek Ephesus. Greek God.
So this is the same story as the Archbishop of Canterbury being the son of Winston Churchill's private secretary. Yeah, all of it. You've got the power brokers that are the bankers and the elite financial regulators. They are now the gods and goddesses in this country. That's why Michael Gove almost became Prime Minister. Yeah, until I got the footage of him attending Rupert Murdoch's wedding with Jacob Rothschild and all of the fraudsters that run the world without any democracy being part of their story.
Gods and Roman emperors share the frieze with
That's gods and emperors
as equals.
Do you see why they get riled up and why it gets windy on occasions?
Be equal to Zeus and Apollo in the conquered city of Ephesus.
So at least for Thor, who had his hammer stolen and had to dress as his sister, yeah, at least for him, the name and the icon for his thunderstorms still live together, and the killing of all of his pagan supporters under the oaks for the Heart of Oak joke, yeah, and the Rothschild family in Fitzlar near America, which was the fizzy stories on the front page of the papers yesterday. Yeah, and we are now, the Scottish rugby squad is killing rabbits who are Hitler's friends. Yeah, that was on the front page of all of the other papers yesterday. Yeah, and that is the joke about the gods that I will tell you later on. It is the same jokes about the same deities that have had their names taken and their genitals cut off. So do you appreciate Thor is the thunder god? We're not allowed to know who the windstorm gods are.
In the city of many gods, a new god was already being proclaimed in a theatre that could hold 24,000 Ephesians. The speaker was Paul of Tarsus, champion of the new god, Jesus the Nazarene.
So do you get it? That's the Pauline missions with the hand grenade of Antioch in his bag, and that is launched from Antioch, and it is Paul, everywhere he goes in Italy the volcanoes erupt and the seismic activity is created everywhere he goes across Asia. Before he gets into the Aegean, before he gets into the Med, he is the man that riles the gods up, because this is the launch of the only one God, yeah, that is never lived and is the human equivalent, yeah, of the people that created our universe. Yeah, we never even got to the moon. Yeah, all of it is a piss take ever since we learned to read and write in Greek and Latin.
The Romans would accommodate one God to many. This new religion with its one God was destined to take root in Rome and bring the pantheon of Roman gods to ruin.
Pants, pants, pants for Woody in the commentary team in Irish rugby. Right then, let's quickly get on to the third one and show you that. There'll be an ad in the middle. Oh no!
The 12th century church of San Clemente was built over the underground meeting places of the mystery cults in Rome.
So do you get that? That's the mystery cults. That is the Mithria. That is the misery chords. Yeah, in today's church. Yeah, the sun's gone in on that one. This is the biggest cause of death in world history. Yeah, it's the launch of every one of those Rothschild's funding streams, yeah, that we've described, yeah, and that's why the Jehovah's were all over me at the weekend. Yeah, one of them fell onto a sharp object as he was cleaning people's windows, yeah, and died a horrible death. Yeah, and all of a sudden they're beginning to see the risks, and that is the one whose family run the profiteering missions in the Philippines. yeah, where the Piso currency is still used. And it was not them that gave me the Piso currency, yeah, from the Philippines. It was a neutral person who's a taxi driver. Yeah, because the people that make the money out of false religion are not keen on giving it to anybody, even a coin. Right then, let's get on with the lost gods. So we're in the Mithraeum, launching Jesus. Field McConnell, you understand it, don't you?
Meeting in secret beneath the crowded streets, there were those who longed for more than the state religion could offer. It was the defenders of the empire, the Roman legionaries, who brought the cult of Mithras from Persia to Rome in the 1st century BC. Part sun god,
turning everything you touch to gold. Yeah? The weaving the gold in the Aryan Norse myths by the Grimm brothers. Yeah? The stories about the European central banker and the weaving of gold. I forget what the name of the person is in that story. Yeah, the gods, the people have got to guess his name, and the guesses are Matthew, Mark, Luke or John. And that is the central banker for the ECB that was, his name is associated with that myth from the Grimm brothers. I keep forgetting the name of the person. I've made a couple of videos on it.
part hero, Mithras slew the bull whose...
Oh, look at that. Yeah, right in the middle of the launch of Christianity. Okay? Please try again later. Slew the bull. This is the myths about Baal. Yeah, the Isis myths. All of the stories that have been replayed since Joseph went to Egypt with his coat of many colours. Yeah, and the bulrushes joke is in those stories too. Yeah, and he did not get suckled by a wolf.
The 12th century church of San Clemente was built over the underground meeting places of the mystery cults who longed for more than the state religion could offer. It was the defenders of the empire, the Roman legionaries, who brought the cult of Mithras from Persia to Rome in the 1st century BC.
Van Rompuy, yeah, Rumpelstiltskin is the joke about the European Central Bank and turning everything we touch in politics to gold for only the rich people. This is the Mithraeum for Jesus, and Field McConnell and the pastor.
On the level above the Mithras sanctuary, another cult worshipped a man called Jesus, whose blood they claimed would renew the world and save his believers. But a state that
T-Mobile phone company
and would house, honor and accommodate a multitude of gods could never accept a religion that worshipped one God and no other. But even the legions of Rome and the walls of Hadrian could not hold forever against the tide of history and the spiritual quest of human hearts.
Led by the Piso family and their poisonous pen, yet with a little bit of help from the Duke of Northumberland, who's Perseus the poet in the court. And host to Harry Potter now.
The Roman Emperor Constantine, convinced that the new God Jesus had aided him in battle, converted to Christianity. Under Constantine, Christianity became the state religion.
So that's the T-Mobile phone. Yeah, that is Constantine, that is Constantinople. Yeah, and that is the launch of World War III. That is the Freemasons' master plan if the trident is not required to render us all extinct. And there's the dovecot for the Rothschilds' pigeons. Right then, so and look at the roof.
Level, the magnificent church of San Clemente is a medieval monument to the religion that would spread to the furthest reaches of the empire and make Rome its religious capital.
With the web for the spider.
And what of the Roman gods? In some ways, they had become servants of the state and risen to prominence on the back of its military.
Do you get that? That is, they have become the slaves after creating the universe that we live in and manipulate by killing everything that moves, by removing every pagan that was placed in the right place on this world for them by the gods in the universe and the heavens. Yeah, and all of that becomes the Aboriginal drinking problem in Rupert Murdoch's Australia before he escapes and runs the CIA and gives it to George W. Bush next. Sorry, Herbert Poppy Bush, the war dead joke for the families out of Naples and Rome. Yeah, where King Herod was in the team with the Pisos. And the Irish think nothing of this as long as they get their wage.
Might.
The Vatican, the cross keys icons in Clermont-Ferrand. Claremont Street is where TAZE Russell, yeah, founded the massive lodge in New York.
Of temples dedicated to the new god, and a graveyard to the lost gods.
So it was howling last night in the woods, and now that I understand it, I can totally relate. Yeah, Christie Keannelly, dog if you read it backwards. The master race, yeah, in Fitzlar near Frankfurt, yeah, and near the European Central Bank, with the myths about turning straw to gold. Right then, let me put the camera down and see if we can get more of the story in. Okay, I want you to see where the earthquakes occur and where the explosions occur, yeah, in the lead up to World War II. Yeah, that's Vesuvius again, erupted in 1944 as a prediction or a warning to the humans that you must not kill your brethren in this way. Yet they totally ignore the lesson, and that is when Mussolini was fighting with Hitler Rothschild on the fascist side. Yeah, and the other opposition are totally profiteering. Yeah, that is Winston Churchill, FDR the Pilgrim Father, yeah, and the Delaney's donkey joke, and the Dutch mafias that mean that when the reparations come, King Bernhard of Germany has become a Dutchman, and he's allowed to carve up the world every which way we like. Right then. So, I will only touch on the seismic events, and I'll leave the other more subtle news about the manipulation of the gods and the writing them out of the story for another video. Okay? And all of it takes you into Wanaka, New Zealand, and that is where the massive disease was launched that has got the name of the god Dion. I forget what the affliction was in the Azure blue rivers that they had down there. But it is like the El Nino joke. I forget what we had to stop fishing in those rivers eventually. Okay, so Wanaka is one of the godly gods' names in the ancient days. Okay, list of wind deities. No one can know who the wind god is. Thor was relatively lucky. Yeah, he's been laughed at through all of human history too, but at least we know that he is the Norse god of thunder and lightning, and he is very active at the moment on my case. Right then, so let's quickly just get you into the conquer then replace. Okay, so the Italian quakes, I have not got that full screen at the moment. Let's see if we could improve that. No, we can't. So I'd need to shrink it. I need to go down and see output to monitor. Okay, and Italian quakes. There's the league table for Italian quakes. Yeah. So let's get rid of that. Okay, so there is an act of God, and the 4 columns that you can see that have been depicted with the pyramidal roofs above them have been totally earthquaked. Okay, very familiar story. All across the Christian spine of Italy this happens. Yeah, it still happens in Vesuvius. Yeah, and it's due to happen again. Okay, so there's the magnitude of the earthquakes. Capo Vaticano, Calabria offshore, 7.9. That's 8, force 8 on the Richter scale. Yeah, slightly offshore in Calabria, at the foot of the toe joke, for the toe sucking jokes about the Piso, fanny, and all of the jokes about the Pi Pi piggy toes. Yeah. Messina in Sicily, 7.2. Avezzano, Abruzza, 7. Magello, Tuscany, 6.3. Irpinia, Campania. That's Campania, that was Pliny's territory, where the Plinian eruption of Vesuvius occurred when they launched the Bible. Yeah, Pliny was the assassin with the alias Maximus, yeah, who was a friend of the Pisos, and he is the one that God killed that day. Sala Peruta, Sicily, 6.5. Gemona del Friuli, Venezuela, Guila, 6.5. That could easily be Piso Frugi, yeah, with a little bit of manipulation. And there's another one in Irpinia, Campania, 6.5, as recently as 1980. All of these have happened in the 20th century. 1968, Salapatra, Sicily, where the mafia were, 6.5. Okay, and let's show you on a map. Oh, maybe we haven't got it on a map. That's a disaster if we don't have it on a map. No, we don't have it on a map. Please note that you do not have to go back hundreds of years to get force 8 quakes in the heart of Roman churchland. All of these are 20th to 21st century acts of God, but the gods are evicted from the church totally. Quite interesting for a scientist and a felon under the new laws. Yeah, that is the laws that mean because I'm an innocent, I'm going to lose half of my home. I'm going to be chucked in a homeless venue, like Hitler Rothschild was before he became so powerful that he was able to flatten buildings like this. And that is all done because he was rejected by the treasonous team that trained him. Yeah, and Germany was the loser in the war. Earthquakes in Italy. You get the timelines. Let's have a look at the volcanoes, and I've got a map of where all of it occurs. Yeah, we live on the outer crust, which over the land is between 32 to 70 kilometers thick. Beneath the outer crust is the mantle, which is the deepest layer, the mantle is extremely hot, but most of the time it stays solid as the pressure inside the